All right, everybody, welcome to the Middle Ground Mike. We've got a good friend of mine here, Roger. Roger, go ahead and introduce yourself and tell everybody what you're about.
Well, my name's Roger Friedman. I'm currently a resident of Florida, although I did start off in the Lower East Side of Manhattan. For about 45 years, I've been in the financial services industry. I'm actually retiring in 48 hours after a 45-year career. I'm not taking over as Santa Claus, but that has been recommended because I hear the fringe benefits are phenomenal. I've written 7 books. The last one was called Erasing America, Broken Politics, Broken Country, which talks a lot about how the progressive left and the Biden administration were systematically destroying our country until my savior, one of them, President Trump, came around, and he's starting to turn things around. And I'm very, very grateful he is. But I also have a monthly newsletter called the Equal Opportunity Times. I am known as the Equal Opportunity Critic. And you could find my website at eocritic.com. And you could sign up for the free newsletter, see a whole bunch of interviews and a whole bunch of blogs. With that, I'll turn it back over to you, Joe.
Awesome. Yeah. I mean, we both feel very similar about our current president. Some of the stuff that we talked about, for me, that kind of stands out, based on, I know you're a little bit more, I would say a little bit more conservative than I am.
Yeah. Well, I'm a little
not a bad way,
Well, yeah, you know what Reagan said? I used to be a liberal, but then when I had something to conserve, I became a conservative.
I mean, not particularly wrong. Ironically, I started out as a libertarian and moved conservative. So
I ran for president. Yes.
I was a big fan of Gary Johnson. I really like, he wasn't somebody that could have hacked it on the world stage.
Okay.
But RFK, so something that had come out, I believe it was yesterday or the day before, RFK got all the big insurers to the table, most of them anyways, and got them to commit to streamlining, a pre-approval process to where a lot of things are going to be instantaneous. And Dr. Oz even said, hey, this kind of stuff is making Americans violent. They're tired of just hearing, essentially he was saying lip reading, just tell us what we want to hear. Because the government was doing nothing really about any of our issues in healthcare. And so the reason why I bring this up is so, like I told you, I try to kind of look at all avenues, like the left, the right, because, the left does have sometimes kind of valid points or at least valid observations to a degree.
You see more of it than I do.
I'll say Bill Maher, modern Bill Maher, not old school Bill Maher, but modern Bill Maher. I would say that's kind of more the liberal I'm talking about.
He's become very, very interesting.
Yeah, he's definitely
years. I wouldn't give him the time of day.
Now I don't mind watching him.
I've never watched him.
Probably the last 6 months I've watched a lot of his stuff.
I see a video clip now and then, so I get 10 seconds of him. Mm-hmm. That's about it.
Yeah, he did. I believe he did an interview with Ben Shapiro, Charlie Kirk.
Those are 2 of my superstars.
Yeah, and you know what? They both enjoyed it.
Do you know Ben just met with the Pope?
Did he really?
I was blown away. I saw an article that he met with the Pope, and I'm like, wow.
Yeah.
It was unexpected.
So something, I don't know if you remember, like 10 years ago or so, Ben Shapiro had kind of said rap is trash, essentially, et cetera, et cetera. Well, I think it's been about a year, but he actually started a rap video and sang.
Yeah, and he's grown a bit of a beard, and he wears sunglasses, and he kind of looks like a hipster.
Yeah, I was like, well, no, this one was a different one. It was Your Feelings Don't Matter thing, and the song was called Facts.
Yeah, the facts don't care about your feelings.
Yeah, and it was with I kind of like the guy Tom McDonald. I'm not a diehard rap guy, but I don't mind him because
there are 2 books by Ben. I got them right here behind me. The Facts Don't Care About Your Feelings, and The Facts Still Don't Care About Your Feelings.
Yeah, they don't. But like getting back to like the RFK thing before I get too far out of that.
Right.
It really stuck out to me yesterday is because, like I was saying, CNN was like, hey, people have done this before, tried to. You know what I mean? And the insurance companies go, hey, Scout's honor, we promise.
Sure.
And then they back out. Well, what really stuck out to me was, and I think this is one of the big things that attracts me to RFK as a politician leader. He said, if you don't do it, we'll make the regulations to make you do it. But we're giving you, essentially, he said, we're giving you the opportunity to do the right thing without the government making you do it.
And I think that's great because RFK will turn around and go to Trump. Either they're listening or they're not listening, and we got to take out the stick. Right now, we're giving a carrot. But
Yeah,
Trump doesn't have a problem taking out the stick.
right. And so, they, people are talking about, well, he got rid of the whole vaccine panel, this, that, and the other thing. And I can definitely see where that can be a concern for some folks. But the one thing that I like, it was, I forgot, I think it was 2018. Somebody had shared a short video of them approving a vaccine in the CDC. And it had not been placebo tested. And that's pretty much like the standard for a lot of medicines, vaccines.
Right.
And then to go even further, some of the vaccines that they're giving kids, for when they're really young, almost infants, have not been placebo tested either. And they're going, well, the science says, and I'm going, science is right the vast majority of the time. But also, let's not forget that 100 years ago, a lot of what science said was proven to be wrong by scientists. Things change, facts change as we learn how to look at things differently. And the reason why I say that is they're going, I forget what that one toxin or chemical that they approved today for flu vaccine. But you can't have that in there. But the reason they're like, well, the scientists have said it's okay. And I'm like, well, the scientists in Europe, which in terms of our health seem to be like light years ahead of us.
Yeah, I wish I didn't get the vaccine. But, when you were just saying this, I thought of the old ads. Chesterfield, the cigarette recommended by more doctors.
Yeah, I mean, it's what you look at the Europeans, and they a lot of their infants get the same amount of vaccines. I think they're a couple little bit less than us, but they spread them out. And they go, well, he's anti-vax. I'm like, no, he's questioning the vaccines. And he even said in one of his hearings, which of course the left media is not going to play,
right,
or any media really. They tried to do the I gotcha. And he said, no, you shouldn't take medical advice from me. You should talk to your doctor. And it's like, well, even if RFK was a doctor, why would I take medical advice from a guy sitting behind a desk in Washington, D.C.?
Yeah. No, I have a lot of admiration for RFK. I haven't always agreed with everything he says. My parents were Kennedy Democrats. I remember crying in school when the principal got on the hoot and holler and announced that the president had been assassinated. 31 kids all around me. We all started crying all at once.
Yeah, he was.
Kennedy's, it was like Camelot.
Yeah, they were essentially American royalty.
They were American royalty. And RFK, he's still got a bunch of that, which, helps him. But I admire that President Trump brought him in.
Yes.
Because it shows a maturity to Trump that most people would not attribute to him.
Yeah, either on the right or the left.
Yeah, I think it was a great idea. I think it was
converted a Kennedy to a Republican. That is, but I also...
And he's a smart guy.
Right, and he cares.
So there was a meme or ad or whatever the hell you call it on Facebook about a week ago, and it was talking about Governor Pritzker of Illinois. Now, I want you to just, in your mind, think of his belly, okay? It's about a 68-inch waistline, okay? And he's telling the school kids what they should be eating. And right next to that picture of him is RFK, like this. The guy has a washboard stomach.
Oh, yeah. He's dedicated.
The guy is ripped. He has guns.
Yes.
And, the caption was, who are you taking nutrition advice from? I mean, and it was awesome.
Yeah. I mean, the Make America Healthy Again movement.
Yes.
I find that it's attracting open-minded Democrats.
Yes. And there aren't many of those, I must tell you.
Right. But, but even Bill Maher's kind of been like, RFK, while he's a little crazy, he's not so crazy at the same time.
Well, you got to be crazy. I used to live in Washington, D.C.
Yeah,
my office was about 4 blocks from the White House.
Oh,
and
man.
we always used to joke that, hey, you don't want to go that way. That's a bad neighborhood. Okay. And Capitol Hill was even worse. Okay. So, you had to be a little, as my grandmother would say, mashuga in the head to even be within the District of Columbia.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, for sure. Yeah. It's just like what RFK and Trump have done is exactly what even if you hate Trump, if people would just take their personal feelings out of it, those two have done exactly what the American people have wanted in terms of they've put differences aside that they may have politically. for a common ground that they can get something
Yeah, they
accomplished on.
found common ground. They blew up the nutrition pyramid, which calls for like 12 slices of bread a day.
Yeah, our bread here is terrible. It's the flour that we use.
So you know what I just rediscovered? Sourdough made in not at the supermarket in a bag, made in a bakery where you get it
Yes.
fresh. And then, take it home, slice it, put it in a toaster. And when you take it out, put some of the everything bagel seasoning on it. I mean, this is what?
You ever heard of Dano seasoning?
No.
He makes like a kind of like an everything seasoning, but he does it without salt or very
Okay.
little salt.
Right.
And it's
Absolutely
extremely
delicious.
flavorful.
Yeah. No, I get it. But back to RFK, I want you to think that, everything that he is involved in and he's doing, they've only been at it for about 130 odd days. They're just getting started. So I expect very, very good things, out of them.
Yeah, something that I had seen too was what was it? Shoot, I can't remember which hearing it was because they seem to want to drag him
There's
in
so
almost
many of
every
them.
day. But I believe it was a senator that said, "I've been working at this for X amount of years to get red dye." I think it was number 4 or 40. And he said something along the lines of, "Well, that's good, Senator. I've only been here 100 days and I got it."
Right. Yeah. And, you read all these headlines, Frito-Lay is taking everything out by next year. Hostess, General Mills, all of them, the Skittles, the M&Ms, the licorice, all this stuff with all these dyes.
Yeah, and it's sad that Europe figured this out 20, 30 years
Yeah,
ago.
you want something to be red, smash a raspberry. It's not rocket science.
Well, Aldi, unless they carry like a special American product, which they do sometimes, they carry like once in a while they have Coke or the vast majority, I think like 98% of the products have no artificial dyes in any of it.
Oh, I didn't know that. I used to go to Aldi's when we lived in Maryland, and I have one here a couple miles from us. I haven't even been there.
Yeah, they're a German company.
Yeah, I know. Yeah.
So that's kind of where their principles come from.
Exponentially in the US.
Yeah, and how they're able to pay people the money that they do for a cashier.
And they have much smaller selection than a Publix, a Safeway, a Giant, whatever.
Yeah, and that keeps their inventory costs down, which makes it easier for them. And they, if you look on all their packaging, has really big barcodes. And the reason for that is the cashier can sit there and just go without having to sit there and find
their
the barcode.
Cashiers like light speed.
Yeah, well, it's like that because it's designed that they put those big barcodes on there to make them efficient, so they can churn out.
Hey, I remember when we were talking off screen, off camera, you wanted to talk a little bit about immigration.
Yeah,
I kind of think that's a really hot topic that we should chat about.
Oh yeah, most definitely. Like I was saying, immigration. One of the big things for me that I had talked about is, when I want to say like I was excited, but I was a little bit hopeful, and Trump seemed to be open to farm and service workers. Hey, maybe there's something we can do to kind of make that work a little bit better. And trust me, I 1,000% understand about, hey, a lot of these people are illegal. But on the flip side, also the companies that are employing them are doing them and the American public a disservice.
Yeah, and if you listen to Schumer, Hakeem Jeffries, Booker, and Pelosi, they'll say if you kick them out, who's going to pick our berries and walnuts? Okay, the American
mentality,
people will
anybody?
starve, which is bullshit.
Yeah, I mean that's an 80s mentality.
Yes,
we're going to keep them here under the table and pay them less, and it's but
it's horrible. It's horrible.
Right. It's the great Ronald Reagan.
I call them the four despicables.
Yeah. I mean, for me, Pelosi's probably about the top one. She's like number one. AOC's probably like 1.1.
Yeah. Schumer, Hakeem Jeffries, Waters. I could go on and on.
Yeah. But for me, I like Reagan. To me, was like a perfect balance of finding where you can pull some things from the left, but be conservative at the same time and get some things done. And I thought he took the greatest approach to immigration. We need to shut it down. But if you're here and you haven't been convicted of any violent crimes, nothing like that, we'll give you, I think he gave him like asylum, or they essentially gave him like, work visa. Like you show up, we'll give it to you. I can't remember the exact detail on it.
You know, what's wild is the fact that under Clinton and Obama, the Democrats didn't scream when millions of people were deported. Now 130,000 have been deported and they're screaming their bloody head off.
Well, it was like I did the math, and I did a podcast almost 2 weeks ago now with a gentleman he's running for the state house in Missouri. He's a progressive Democrat, but ironically, he's still pretty conservative at the same time. He got 35% of the vote in a red district. Not easy to do, but it was, how did he word it? By the approach that these companies are taking and the fact that like our government is just purely, for him and I were talking like purely focused on the immigration aspect of it.
Right.
We need to go after the companies that were taking advantage of these people.
Well,
like Tyson Foods and Purdue.
yeah.
If I remember, they're two of the biggest offenders.
Yeah. But what I was reading last week, I think it was Lincoln, Nebraska. It was a meat processor or something. They took out over 60 people, and it turned out that there was identity theft involved.
Yes.
So think of yourself as the hiring manager at this meat packer. They're giving you valid ID and whatever other papers, and it looks okay. It looks as if they're employable. They had no idea it's all stolen.
So there's a company here in Michigan. I won't say their name because I don't know all the details, but I do know some people who have worked for them and still do. They employ a lot of immigrants. A good chunk are illegal.
Mm-hmm.
So here's the thing: without openly saying it, they're pretty much like they nicely point them in the direction of somebody who's selling a stolen.
Well, it's
The companies
illegal
are pushing
for any employer to knowingly hire an illegal. And there's something called, don't quote me, E-Verify or something like
Yes.
that. Okay. And they should be using it.
Yeah,
If
we
they
use it at
don't,
my
they
job.
should be shut down or
Yeah,
jailed.
it's it kind of goes back to one of the, and this kind of actually it ties directly into immigration. And one of my big issues, because I work in the food industry, is the chicken. And I watched a Netflix documentary about the chicken industry in America, and it was so eye-opening. The chicken industry in America works just like food franchises. So if you own a farm, even though like Purdue can only sell it and with the market the exchange tells them to. The futures, I'm sorry, not the exchange, but the futures says, hey, you can sell it for 30 cents a pound. But what Purdue does is they go in and they tell these, a lot of times, immigrant farmers or very small mom and pop farmers, we're only going to give you, this is just out there, but we're going to give you like a nickel a chicken. And so they press them so much so that the only thing that they can afford to do is to hire an illegal immigrant. Because if they paid anybody even $15 an hour over the table, they would lose money. And
I know
ties
that
into
there are
the bird flu.
documentaries out there on chicken farming and everything. And I
It's crazy.
remember one line from years ago, and it said, if you knew how chickens were raised and processed, you would never eat another chicken in your life.
I use the analogy to someone. I said, what? And I get sometimes how, if I had to stare at it all day, I probably would feel it's cool. You know what I mean? But also let's remember, if the food chain was flipped, them chickens wouldn't care if we were all herded in a building and they were eating us.
Yeah.
They would eat us. It doesn't make cruelty okay, but it's like we got to take a step back and remember there's 400 million people in this country.
Right.
And we have to feed them. And when it comes down to it, the chicken or me, the chicken can go every time.
Okay, let's get back to immigration.
Yeah, so
today I read an article and it said that there are 1.4 million illegals on Medicaid. Now, I happen to know a little bit about Medicaid. It is a shared program paid for by states and the federal government. And Medicaid is for the indigent. Think of it like welfare, health welfare, okay? And certain classes of people, minors, renal failure, things of that nature. But there are almost 1.5 million illegals on there. And that money, which has got to be in the hundreds of billions of dollars, Joe, is being used to pay for illegals when it should be used to pay for Americans. And as these programs are going broke, you wonder why they're going broke, because hundreds of billions of dollars is being spent that should never have been spent.
Well, if you look at the bastion of giving away free stuff to people who aren't citizens and knocking their own, California. Even California is starting to backtrack on that. They're starting to go, hey,
I've seen
we
that,
can't afford
but
it.
they're still idiots. I won't even visit California.
But they're finally going, oh, hey, maybe everybody's right. This isn't affordable. You just give it to it.
Well, it's because you've got their budget. They're $8 billion in the hole. And unless Gavin Newsom, pulls money out of his ass, I don't know where the hell the money's coming from.
Yeah.
Okay? All they could do is keep tax and spend, which is what New York, and I could not miss the opportunity to prognosticate a little bit about the New York mayoral primary
I know.
yesterday. I mean,
Yeah,
just shoot me and put me out of my misery.
I think they gave a Republican a solid chance.
I hope so, in a city of Democrats, and I'm from there, but I will not set foot in New York City again.
No, and the problem is the partisan politics is what's made it like that with the immigration and things of that nature. So when we're talking about immigration, I know Trump's goal now is 3,000, but I believe technically right around their internal goal. I believe Tom, how do you say his last name?
Homan.
Okay. I believe at one point he was saying it was around 1,500 to 2,000 a day.
I want to see 10,000 a day.
But
300,000 a month, that's 4 million a year.
Right. Well, here's even the reason why I bring that up is even at that rate over 4 years, Trump would not have deported more than Obama. He would not have deported more than Clinton. He would not have deported more than Bush. He would have not deported more than Carter. And these are like, and it's going, and it was like I told somebody, I said, it's only an issue because it's Donald Trump doing it and he doesn't make it sound nice and fluffy.
Yeah. When Obama did it, it was perfectly fine. Pelosi
Deporter in
smiled.
chief.
Schumer smiled.
Yeah, they called him deporter
Waters
in
was,
chief.
hey, go team.
Yeah, even Hillary Clinton said, hey, you know what? If you want to steer, that's fine. You're going to pay a fine. Yeah. And I'm not going to lie. She had a valid point there. You want to stay here? You want to get on the payroll? Pay a fine? Come on in. And I mean, obviously, we need to close the borders at the same time, right? But I also think that's a way for the federal government not to have to put all this money into shipping some of those folks out that, while illegal, unfortunately, they do contribute. And then at the same time, you get rid of the bad ones. You're
of
contributing
course they
to
contribute,
Medicare,
but we can find Americans who will contribute too.
1,000%. I
There
agree.
are plenty of Americans that'll pick walnuts and blueberries, and everything. Well, so much of it is mechanized now anyway.
So I work in the service industry, and I told you what I do for a living before. 10 years ago, I would have never said this, but when I get people that come in now, I'll be like, hey, I need you to sweep and mop. Why? You don't see the dirt? Would you want to eat off of that? But they were literally, and it's not even that they're kind of like going like, why? Because I don't want to do my job. They're literally confused and baffled that you're asking them to sweep and mop a floor. I've got a store that's by the airport here in Detroit, and it's so hard to find a maintenance guy there because it's not a lot of residential. So and then on top of it, people
the pool of workers is not good.
Well, in the airport, the same exact position, the airport pays like $6-7 more an hour. But they got to pay a lot more fees and stuff. But so wish I would be able to find a legal immigrant, not illegal,
a legal
immigrant to come in and work, because I've worked with immigrants before.
Joe, can't you get AI and Chat GPT to mop the floor?
I wish.
They're supposed to be taking all the jobs, right?
Yeah, I wish. I know a lot of people. I had made a point about this. It was like, hey, AI is going to take order taking jobs in restaurants, and I'm like, well, in my industry, it's not necessarily taking a job, because the person still has to have the headset on. They still have to listen if the customer has a problem. But where it's a good thing is okay, now that person's freed up to help do another task to push your order out faster.
It's funny you mentioned that. I had a discussion with a friend the other day. We've been in a mastermind group together, and he was railing about the fact that him and his family went into a restaurant and they're waiting to order, and a snotty waitress came over, handed him a tablet and said, "Here, order." And they all got up and left.
I've experienced that at McDonald's where technically they're supposed to have someone that's on the front counter, but sometimes, people call off, so people go to the kiosk.
I don't bring my reading glasses to dinner all the time, so I can't look at your tablet, nor do I want to, nor do I know who was handling it before me, and did you sanitize it?
Oh, yeah.
And the list goes on and on.
It's difficult to keep up with that kind of stuff.
I walk right out. I will not give them my money.
Yeah, no, it's, in my industry, it just frees someone up to help get you better product. It doesn't take a job. And that's what I try to tell people. Like in my industry, it doesn't do what it would do when you automate something on the farm, because now we can use that same labor. Can we pump out 7 more cars? So I'm sitting here going, hey, if I can get somebody who wants to do the job, a legal immigrant.
Have you ever seen one of those videos, probably on YouTube, I guess, and it shows a automated Amazon warehouse, and you see the robot, packing a bin full of 6 items that John Doe ordered yesterday or this morning, and it keeps going from rack to rack. And these racks are like 40 feet tall.
Oh, yes, yes.
And it's getting a sponge from over here and a hairbrush, from 150 feet down the hall. And these places are 2-3 acres long.
Oh, yeah.
And there's like 4 people there. And they're
Mhm.
all at computer stations, and everything else is robots. It's amazing.
Yeah,
And they get it right.
yes, they do. The only downside that I've seen with some of those are sometimes like the robot will do one thing, package it,
Right.
but then the human error will factor in when they go to put it on a truck and deliver it.
Right.
Because I've had it where it'll say out to delivery or out for delivery. The next thing you know, delayed for 2 days, and I'm going. I experienced that today. I got an email from Amazon, hey, your package has been delayed till Sunday. And then it goes, your package is out for delivery. And I'm like, well, okay. I'm like, well, I'm glad it's out for delivery, but
Well, and so you should email them back. Does that mean I get a refund?
I should. That's the immigration thing. It's here in Detroit, we've got 2 areas that are really big immigrant. One is, I'm sure you probably heard of the city, Dearborn, Michigan.
Yes, that's
Isn't biggest Arab population in the
there?
country, concentrated Arab population in the country. And I will say for the most part, they take very good care of their city. I mean, there's crime in certain parts, but that's kind of par for every city. But overall, they take care of their city. They keep it. It's an old city. It's old. It's been around for 100 and something years.
Sure.
So, but they take care of it. And then, I'm sure you've seen the images and the videos of Detroit over the last 30, 40 years.
Oh my gosh, it's been terrible.
Right. And so, but the one part that they don't show about Detroit is Southwest Detroit. So Southwest Detroit is made up of I would probably say 95% Hispanic immigrants. And it's the one area of Detroit where you can go, and even though some of these houses are older, they keep them clean. They keep them neat. The neighborhoods are safe to walk during the day. You don't feel like you're going to get mugged walking down the street.
You don't
I'm
have
not knocking other people.
boxes in the driveway.
Right. Yeah. And I'm not knocking other parts of Detroit. It's just, these folks have taken very good care of their neighborhood.
Right.
And I tell people, I'm like, hey,
Well, it's pride of ownership.
Right. These are the folks that we need to, if some of them are there illegally, as long as they're not committing a crime, is there a way we can find a way to, hey, here's a work visa. You pay, 5% more on your taxes at the end of the year for 5 years. Something of that nature, right?
One of the ways that I thought people could be Americanized would be mandatory military conscription.
Yeah, I wouldn't be opposed to that.
You give them 5 doors: Army, Navy, Marines, Air Force, Coast Guard. Choose any one of those doors. You give us 46 months, and you do it right. You do it well. You get out. You get a free ride to any state university, 4-year program, not Harvard, state university, state college. Okay. And we'll give you $5,000 to boot.
Yeah.
I think it's a fair trade.
Yeah. And it works for them.
That way you're an American citizen for the rest of your life.
Yeah. It works for them. It works for us. Yeah. It puts people who care on the ground,
and it
people
gives
who
them
had
skills. For example, if you're a mechanic working on A-10 Warthogs, which I think they're retiring them anyway, or a communications specialist, you have hard skills that are in demand.
Yeah. And I think, there's a lot what immigrants have to offer to this country, even some of the ones that are here illegally. We do need to close the border. We can't be having people come through unchecked. That's just any reasonable
Border
person.
sealed tight as I love it.
Yeah. Any person who's a reasonable person and takes the politics out of it should be able to recognize it. Because here's the thing.
Did you see the other day, the May figures came out? The amount of people that were arrested in May was 0 at the border.
Wow. No, I
and
did
it was
not see
like
that.
44 or 64,000 a year ago under Biden.
Yeah, because they know now. They're like, what's
Went from 64,000 to 0.
Right.
Without legislation, Joe.
Yeah.
I'm talking Joe Biden, not Joe.
Oh, yeah, no, I
So guess what? You didn't need legislation to bring it down to 0. You lied to the American people.
Yeah, I mean, flat out. And that kind of goes into another part we were kind of talking about, was the auto pen. And this is what makes me think of that.
Oh, my gosh.
I'm sure you know who Chuck Todd is.
Yeah.
He has turned so hard on Joe Biden. I mean, you would think it was Donald Trump talking about him. I was listening to it. I was like, is this really Chuck Todd? I mean, if Chuck Todd could say without saying it, to me, in so many words, he was saying, I was only repeating what I was told to repeat at my job.
Well, they're realizing they were made fools of.
Yeah, he pretty much said, he pretty much said in so many words, we were lied to. The president is selfish, or the former president. He was referring to Biden. Knowing what was going on with his kids when he, started in 2018, trying to really push for his candidacy. And he pretty much said there was nobody home, and I don't think he does. And I don't particularly either. Do I blame Joe Biden as a human for any of this? No, because I don't think Joe Biden even completely
I don't think he was in control at all.
Right. Because Joe Biden was a lot more of a centrist as a senator. And a lot of these things that went down, the Biden from 15 years ago would have never been for.
No.
And, I don't know if he has dementia or not. I'm not a doctor, but it's definitely, some people age different than others, right? Him and Trump aren't that far off. Well, only 3-4 years in age. And Trump's just a lot sharper than he is. That's not a knock on Biden.
Let me ask you a question. How do you give a pardon to someone who has not been
convicted of a crime?
Not convicted, accused of a crime. Okay.
Yeah,
they haven't been arrested. They haven't been before a grand jury. They haven't been before a judge. You're just giving them a preemptive pardon in case someone might come after them. I think that's bullshit.
Dr. Fauci sticks out to me.
Yes.
I mean, that guy should be sitting in. I get the federal government can't charge him.
But Mayorkas. I think Mayorkas should be hung by his toenails.
Yeah. No. With Fauci, it kind of goes into the auto pen, right? It's not the same issue, but it's very linked. They banned biological testing here, development, things of that nature. That's how his work got transferred over to Wuhan lab in China, because it was the only place he could continue it. He was already doing this kind of work in the United States when we banned it. So, and, I thought it was very ironic when Trump got elected. It was maybe a couple weeks tops when the CIA came out and said, well, yeah, we do got some proof that it came from the lab in China. And I thought that, I'm like, and then all of a sudden, here comes the pardons. And I was like, tell me that you figured out that Dr. Fauci dropped the ball without telling me you figured out he dropped the ball and things got out of hand. Do I personally think that he was trying to kill people? I don't think so. Do I know? No. Do I think he was extremely negligent? Yeah, because he's an egomaniac. And I think he was trying to prove a point. And it got out of control, but the auto pen thing, that just kind of going back to it just shows that Biden's family in the leadership of that party took advantage of him. And I wholeheartedly believe if AOC was actually the head of the Democratic Party, we would know about it, because she would not hide it. She would be like, this is what the center people did. This is what they did to lie to you. Because to be fair to her is she calls it like she sees it, whether I agree with her or I don't. There was a statistic that people voted for her, but also voted for Trump because they felt that they were being honest to them. I mean, now granted, she's kind of a lot of hot air, right? I feel like maybe not necessarily her political positions, but the Democrats need more people willing to say things like that in order for us to get the full truth of auto.
Well, I hear what you're saying, and I'll say one thought about AOC. I think she makes a wonderful, wonderful bartender.
Yes.
And that's all that I'll say about AOC.
Yeah, I like her direct approach, and they could have used her in the Biden administration. So she's eye candy. What I would like to see, or not see as the case may be, is corporate media stop putting her picture in the news every day. Yeah, they're doing it because she's a pretty face, not because of her skills.
Yeah.
And that's the worst part is she actually has a degree in economics.
What's happening countrywide is people are seeing her face all the time. They're getting used to her. Okay. Yeah. It's like, I don't need to get used to an idiot. Okay. Yeah. Stop showing her picture. Let the media go on a diet. Gee, let's not write about her, talk about her, or show her likeness anywhere for 30 days. And then let's reevaluate. Kind of like a 30-day diet. Let's see how we did. Get back on a scale. Did we lose any weight?
Right. Yeah, no, and so give me some of your thoughts on the auto pen situation. I mean,
I feel like I'm happy to. From what I've read, it's egregious. It is probably the worst debacle in 100 years. You literally have the idea that every act, every law, every executive order, every pardon does not carry the force of law. I mean, that's insane. Okay.
Yeah.
We're talking hundreds, perhaps thousands of actions. Do they carry the force of law? I don't know. Did the third assistant to the deputy authorize it while he was on the beach in Wilmington and there's no paper trail whatsoever and Biden never discussed it in front of the media? I mean, it's unbelievable.
Yeah. It
I
goes,
want Comer to get to the bottom of it.
yeah. And, it's kind of, I believe, was it Kash Patel and Trump who said, oh, well, we didn't find anything direct. I think it was a big cover up so that nobody would ever find the information. I truly believe a lot of the information was destroyed, just like the emails from Hitler.
It's very, very troubling.
Yeah, and it just goes to show that because there was some conservative people that were in and out of that administration, not very many, like 2 or 3. But either A, they were ignorant of the situation, or B, they were just as complicit as the other Democrats in it.
Well, there was a very tight inner circle working around Biden, and it was kind of like, the guard at the door. You didn't get past that inner circle. You didn't know what the hell was going on.
Yeah, and it's terrible. I mean, without it, can you imagine if we had the Constitution today? Nate, that would just.
Did John Marshall really sign that?
Yeah, did he actually? Right, did he actually agree to this? It's disappointing for me that we even have to have that kind of conversation.
Oh, I know.
I
They
mean,
say it dwarfs Watergate, and I agree.
but the corporate media is doing a very good job of keeping it under wraps.
Oh yeah, they're yeah. It's not in their best interest to stir the hornet's nest.
I mean, but all these big commentators that are getting cut out from these network channels because they don't want to pay them the money. And I'm sorry, but Chris Cuomo and Chuck Todd were probably the only reason people watch some of those networks because they're
eye candy for the girls.
Yeah,
Hold on, I didn't say that well. I apologize. They are eye candy for the opposite sex. How's that?
Right.
I know that when I watch Fox, I mean the parade of insane-looking reporters and journalists takes my breath away. I'm like, my gosh, where did they find this person?
Yeah, they do it.
You may not listen to the news, but you're sure as hell watching the news.
Yeah, no, it's like Chris Cuomo. He's come out now that he's out of I believe he's with News Nation now. I believe it is. News Nation is definitely a little bit more up the middle. I've watched, I wouldn't say a ton, but I've watched a good chunk of News Nation, and I don't mind it completely. The conservative guy they have on that comes on after Chris Cuomo, I forget his name, but he's kind of weird. Not my type of person. Not in like a bad way. He just feels like he's just trying to sell himself and not his message. But I found that Chuck Todd and Chris Cuomo are a lot more center than they are left. And then Chris Cuomo even came out and said, I was pretty much told to say all these things. And I was told that if I didn't toe the line, I'd be gone.
I hear you. So many people were in jeopardy of losing their livelihood. So they made very, very poor decisions.
Yeah, and
I'm glad we got the opportunity to talk about this because it's an important subject. And I hope you're able to blast out this podcast far and wide.
Oh, yes.
My friends on Mars will be listening. Radio signal gets there. But if I may, could I give another short commercial before we adjourn?
Yeah.
So again, I'm an author. I'm a writer. I write a newsletter. It comes out twice a month. It's called the Equal Opportunity Times. And I am an arch conservative. So you can imagine, 4,000 to 5,000 words twice a month. You should enjoy what you read. And you can sign up for it at eocritic.com. And I am the Equal Opportunity Critic. And if you are so moved, my book is on Amazon, which, Joe, I think is the last bookstore on the planet.
Yes, it is.
Not sure. I think Barnes & Noble may still be around, but basically everyone gets their books on Amazon. And my latest book is called Erasing America, Broken Politics, Broken Country, and it's a nail biter.
Yeah, I'll leave off with this. But first, I really appreciate you coming on.
You're very, very welcome. I'm happy to be here.
Hopefully, I try to always represent, I would say, the middle of the road, because I think that's where we
Joe, if you stay in the middle of the road, you're likely to get run over.
Hey, you know what? But sometimes you got to take that semi head on like you're Superman and just boom, man, and just, knock that thing far back.
Wait, did you say Superman?
Yeah, just knock that thing back.
So hold on one second. You wouldn't be talking about this fellow, would you?
Oh, yes,
Okay,
yes.
just making sure. Okay.
Oh, yeah. I'm diehard fan of Superman.
So am I from way back.
Yeah, I believe there's a new movie coming out. I don't know if it's this year or
July
next
11th.
year. July 11th this year, right? Okay, yeah, that's. But yeah, I hope you enjoyed your time. Everybody
Yes,
check
thank you
Roger
so
out.
much. And, send me a copy of this.
Yeah,
However
I'll have
you
it
do it.
edited and I'll send you some stuff over later on tonight.
That sounds great. Thank you.
All right,
And
thank you,
thank you
Roger.
for your time.
Oh, I appreciate it. Thank you so much. Have a good
Okay.
one.
Bye-bye now.